Light stream. We are LPAlliance, an intercaucus coalition rebuilding the Libertarian Party and revolutionizing the liberty movement. My name is Amanda Griffiths, and I was not just yelling at Kyle 2 seconds ago when Kyle just started the stream. We are joined by Charlie Larkin of LPAlliance. What we're going to do is hopefully once a week, maybe once every other week, we're going to be talking to members of LPAlliance. We're going to be talking about what brought them to libertarianism, what brought them here, and just learn a little bit more about who they are as people and as libertarians. So, Charlie, how are you doing tonight?
Another day. Kind of glad it's over. Just been one of those long, not particularly cold, but dreary, rainy, not very nice days. We tend to get them around here during October.
I was going to say, you are in Massachusetts, so that kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, it's fall is lovely until it rains, and then all the leaves fall off, and oh boy, does it change!
It gets cold. Yeah. So you've been in LPAlliance for how long now?
To be honest, I'm not sure. Maybe a yearish. When it was first introduced to me, I don't know when I formally joined.
Mm-hmm.
I just been kind of along for the ride. I was never offered an application for membership or a petition or said you're in. It's just okay. This sounds like a worthwhile thing, so let's do it.
You joined the Discord. We're fairly informal about that. The Discord is not quite a year old. So I think it'll be a year old in late November.
I think I've only been in there maybe at this point. Yeah, I was just maybe about 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months. Kyle, by the way, your volume is very low. I don't know if you want to do something about that, but I have you up as loud as
your volume is very low.
You can be. So Charlie, I don't want to start with tell us about yourself because then it's going to feel like a job interview. But if you can give us maybe a brief bio, one thing that I love that you do is you very frequently write for The Torch and you talk about your experiences as a Mason and you bring some of that to libertarian thought. So just give people a sense of who you are and what brought you to libertarianism.
Well, what finally kind of brought me over as eventually a registered libertarian was one of the Institute for Humane Studies summer weekend programs. It was at Bryn Mawr College in 1998 while I was still in college. And I met Steve Horwitz and a bunch of other people. And first I walked away with, I think there are a lot of good ideas here. I'm not sure how practical they are, but I think it merits discussion. And the more I read and the more I looked, the more I said, maybe this isn't a bad thing. And then about 20 years ago, I finally voted for Michael Badnerist for president, and I voted in 2002 for Carla Howell for governor of Massachusetts. Michael Cloud for Senate, and I said, I finally voted for people I actually like. And I've pretty much stayed libertarian to the extent that candidates have offered, or the availability of candidates, I should say, have offered. And I joined the party formally, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, and I had done a little bit of sending out emails and things like that here and there for a couple of people, and contributed to a couple of campaigns prior to that, things that I believed in, and I continued to, and I just said, maybe I should just sign on, so I signed on. Prior to that, a lot of things that I saw growing up and that I learned about seemed to emanate from the government, and these things weren't good. So even as a kid, I started saying, do we really want the government doing this? Most children, they like rules and things like that, and I don't necessarily object to rules, but I do object to foolishness and stupidity, especially when it costs people money, freedom, sometimes their life. And I really, the more as I thought about it, the more I said, this is this I think is probably the direction I should be going in. And that has been redoubled through, as you've seen in some of what I've written, some of my involvement with Freemasonry. Now, I want to make very clear, Masonry is absolutely apolitical. We don't get into it as an organization beyond necessary interactions for things like a building inspector for the lodge hall or something like that. But as we also know through history, a lot of the people who had to do with the founding of this country were Masons. And you can see, even with the mess that we now have as government, you can see a lot of Masonic thought in the founding documents and in the early day republic. Things like everyone should be treated fairly. No man is more important than another. And while it manifested itself in different ways, sometimes out of necessity, particularly with the very unfortunate compromises that were made with slavery to basically form the country, something that I think has been to our regret ever since. The basic idea of people should be free to serve and free to live is very much a Masonic tenet. And you see that in a lodge today. We have I belong to 3 lodges because I really don't have much of a life. And I'm an officer in all 3 of them, to make absolutely sure I have no life. And all three of my lodges do things in their communities. We do it of our own free will and accord. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We do everything from underwrite community events to help out with stuff like Thanksgiving baskets for the elderly and shut-ins. We do, one of my lodges has taken for the last 25 or so years the mantle of helping maintain a couple of very old cemeteries that date back to the 1600s. And we do this again because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes it is a necessary thing to do. And when it happens to be both, well, then it's both. But you also see a lot of things that we've carried forward. As I said in one of my articles, we're like Masonry, the Libertarian Party is a voluntary organization. We rely on our membership. We rely on them for ideas and impetus. We rely on them for a direction. And where we need the direction to come in, that's what I think is where the LPAlliance has a real strong hand, is that we have some very strong, principled people who really want the best, not only for the organization, but in the long run, I think they want the best for America. And that's why I've signed on to it, and I apologize. I keep getting this little flag that says, oops, my connection is lost. So if it gets a
Connection's
little
good to
choppy,
us, yeah.
I have a small problem. It's called DSL. And part of the machinery for the DSL is broken,
Mm-hmm.
and the phone company refuses to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And our other alternative is very unreliable cable internet. So the DSL is actually more stable, and it's also about half the cost. So I stay with that.
Right. You said something, by the way, just a second ago. We did not hear it. So, nope, didn't hear you.
Nope.
Did not hear you.
Your
So
lips
it's
are
not
moving,
Charlie's.
but no sound
It's not
is
Charlie's internet. It's actually yours. That is the problem here.
Oh.
It is. There we go.
What a refreshing change.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of times when I'll talk with Kyle.
Usually
There we
it's
go. There we go.
Him getting a triangle
can
is
hear
not
you
my
now.
fault.
See, a lot of times when Kyle and I talk, he's fixing some kind of tech problem. So it's good to know that sometimes he has tech problems of his own accord.
Because
So-
this microphone's got a stupid touch button on it, which is the worst design choice ever.
It's like
And
push
so,
to talk on your phone.
well, like I move it
I see.
around, but the place where you're supposed to grab the mic is where the button is, and I can't see the light, so I don't realize when it's muted itself.
Gotcha.
So, at some point, Charlie, you should let me know what's actually broken there, and we'll see if we can't work around that.
It says, oops, connection lost, reconnecting.
I mean, your internet as a whole. I'll see if I can't help you out. But that is.
Oh, it's all at the switching station, unfortunately. I've already had this discussion with the phone company.
What if I told you that
And because we
I
live in a poor
bypass
rural
AT&T's
town,
hardware and just work directly from their trunk without them knowing? Legally.
oh, I have Verizon, but
I can fuck around with
a
the
company I love so much, I purposely make my check out to New England Telephone and Telegraph Company every month as out of spite towards them.
But you can see it in her face. FiOS.
I do say FiOS.
Oh, I wish I could. They won't bring it in.
Oh gosh. So when did you started doing masonry when you were fairly young, right? You kind of done this for much of your life now?
I joined at 21. Which was at that time was the youngest age that you could. It's since gone to 18. I was a DMLA when I was a kid. DMLA is what we have for boys between the ages of 12 and 21. It's a wonderful thing. It's probably the single best thing I ever did for myself. Mm-hmm. And I think honestly a lot of my libertarianism does come from DMLA. The lessons taught, such as service to others, honor, dignity, standing up for the truth, standing up for what's right, trying to treat your opponents with some degree of respect and civility, even if they don't treat you with that. And that's how I do things. It's how I try to do things anyway. Mm-hmm. Does it always work? No. We're human. Nothing's perfect. But I think that over the 30 odd years ago when I joined DMLA, it was really driven home to me that even then, okay, I think I'm more or less on the right track. And that really kind of cemented it. But like a lot of things that you learn as a teenager, it takes maybe 15, 20 years, maybe even longer for all of these things to really gel, even if you're kind of operating in those frameworks already. Mm-hmm. And as I got into my 30s and 40s, I said, a lot of this really starts to make sense now, especially as I get older. The value of good friends and a good relationship with your family really does matter. I don't have a lot of family. I have my parents. Um, and that's really about it. A small smattering of cousins, but an aunt that I pretend doesn't exist, and the feeling is quite mutual. But that's neither here nor there. But those those relationships that were emphasized during the first degree of DMLA. DMLA has 2 degrees, or if you want to think of it this way, when you join, there are 2 steps to the initiation, and this is part of the first step was the concept of what they call filial love of being a good son and being a good citizen, which they moved into with patriotism, which was one of the other 7 cardinal virtues, all of them being reverence for sacred things, filial love, courtesy, comradeship, fidelity, cleanness, and patriotism. And taken together, try to live a reasonably clean life, unfettered by excesses and excessive indulgences. Believe in the mission of your country, which is very different than the government. I'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah.
Stay honorable and true to those who stay honorable and true to you. Stand by your family, whether it's your genetic family or your chosen family. And regardless of your own personal beliefs, acknowledge that there is some kind of greater power in the universe, no matter what you call it. Even if it's just simple fate. We're all in the hands of something that's bigger than us, and whether we know what it is or not is kind of besides the point. We owe it to ourselves to try to live to the universal truths of mankind. Things like be honest, try to be nice to other people, don't steal, don't hurt others, don't be a bonehead, if you want to summarize it very succinctly. And a lot of teenagers need to hear stuff like that. And I watched a few of the guys that I was in DMLA with come in as what happened? And then a couple of years later, hey, you know what? It worked. And I can't afford you that transformation into being a better adult. And yes, there is an organization for girls too. It's called Rainbow. Actually, there are 2. The other one is called Job's Daughters. Rainbow is a little bigger. Be easier to find that most likely. But for anyone who's watching, if you have tweens or teenagers in your life who maybe need a little something, I highly encourage you to look into it. I think it's a great thing for any kid to get involved with.
You talked a little bit about the different. Sorry, go on. There's a slight delay, but go on.
And going back to that is also when I had really started to realize that through the DMLA degree, which is the 2nd degree, we had all known by that point that tyranny is real. By that point, we'd all studied to some degree or another the revolution in World War I and World War II, and had some exposure to the Soviet Union, which was still a real issue at that time, and communist China, which persists as a terrible issue, along with North Korea. And that's when I started to realize maybe these are things that we can all work against. And someday, eventually, through some means, hopefully nothing excessively violent, have another collapse of the Soviet Union where it just kind of evaporated. And same thing with the Iron Curtain, right? Or as I like to say, when I was in high school when that happened, I said, "Oh, I guess the Iron Curtain finally rotted out," and that was not a bad thing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I also saw things that were terrible just before I was in high school. I learned about a place in Massachusetts called the Quabbin Reservoir, where entire towns and villages and several other towns were stolen from their inhabitants and used to make a enormous reservoir for the city of Boston and its inner suburbs, and we're talking about 75, 80 miles west of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see to this day a lot of people from the greater Boston area thinking it's the most wonderful thing, and oh, look at what we did to the poor bumpkins. These were 4 small, poor towns, and we're starting to see things like that happen again. I live in a house that was owned for a long period of time by a Quabbin evacuee, as it happens. And and the more I looked into it as an adult, I moved here a few years ago, and I've become very active in preserving its memory and history. But then I also saw other things, like a predecessor of what became Cash for Clunkers in the late 80s. California decided to start doing this. Now, like Cash for Clunkers, it's a voluntary thing, but they were, paying people to get rid of their old cars. And my first thought is, this is kind of stupid. I was a freshman in high school when this happened. And at that point, I was already very into antique and collector cars. And of course, I didn't own anything at that point. But I said, this is going to hurt a lot of people who do restorations and have vehicles to maintain. And it's going to cause a lot of damage in the long run. And when we did it again in 2009 and 10, we again ran into those problems. We have now completely distorted permanently the used car market.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that made me even more libertarian-ish. And then I just said, okay, you know what? A couple of years later, when I had a little extra money, of course, that was the big recession, and like a huge amount of the population, I was either out of work or horribly underemployed. I just said, okay, fine, that's it. I was able to pony up $25 a year and start and maintain my membership, and started doing that.
The difference between respect for, or no, it wasn't respect, it was honor to your country's mission, which is different from honor to your country's government. I think that those were the words that you used. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more
Something
about that
along
distinction?
Those lines, yes.
And how you understand that?
Well, I think, to me, patriotism is standing for your country's highest honor.
Mm-hmm.
It's standing for what is right. And I think many people confuse that with, you have to support and endorse your government because they're our country's highest honor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really true. If you look at our history, you can see that after roughly the Federalist period, our government hasn't been particularly honorable. There were a few mistakes and growing pains and things like that, during was still kind of feeling out what was okay and what wasn't, and it continues to do that. It's going to do that probably in perpetuity. But if you look at things like the Declaration of Independence, the preamble to the Constitution in particular, the Bill of Rights, Federalist Papers, even the Anti-Federalist Papers, as maybe point counterpoint. That is our country's honor and the heritage that the government has inherited. And all too often we see the government doing everything possible to disavow it by actions that are frankly ill-advised, stupid, sometimes outright illegal, and frequently very unethical and immoral. And people say, well, you don't support the government, you're not a patriot. Well, I'm a patriot because I support the ideas that we were founded on. And those are the kind of things that I try to work to. And sometimes people will look at me and say, do you really? I say, well, yeah, I mean, I interpret it maybe a little differently than you do. And sometimes I interpret things very differently than other people. That's one of the beauties of having freedom of thought and freedom of conscience, is you have the ability to think for yourself. And sometimes you can even look at things and say,
no, Charlie's gone. Oh no. He's back. Yay.
Charlie's back.
I guess it was
Gotcha.
me after all, wasn't it?
No, it's just Kyle's just now cursing everyone. So yeah, with he's jealous since his computer didn't work right. Now he's trying to make everyone else's.
And if it's a day where my computer is working right, you know that something is wrong in the universe.
There we go. There we go.
But yeah, I mean, it gets to a point where you say, this is where you have to draw that difference between patriotism and nationalism. And that to me is kind of the dividing point. Blindly supporting your government is nationalism. And calling lack of support of your government, even when you know they're doing something not good, is nationalism. Standing for this is where you're supposed to be, to me, is the more patriotic thing to do.
Yeah.
And I
especially
think
in a country like the United States, where our patriotism is founded on the concept that we are going to overthrow unjust governments and we're going to fight for the freedoms of people.
And we look at a lot of things where, and we can look at right now, we can see a government that has made it, that over the last 50 to 75 years has made it perceptibly more difficult to build a home, start a business, pay for your medical bills, buy groceries, buy gas, buy a car that you want, buy a house sometimes. I've worked in real estate off and on over the last 30 years. And, I can tell you, I mean, we're doing things locally that are absolutely insane. And, it's just, but the list goes on and on and on. Right now, because I don't make a ton of money, I am right now unfortunately, I'm dependent on a program called Mass Health. It's the only way I can afford medical insurance, which in Massachusetts, I now get fined for not having. So it's either a fine I can't afford, or take government, or I'm thinking of the bumper sticker, the government will break your leg and then give you a crutch and say, see what would happen without, it's kind of one of those situations. But a lot of this would go away if we'd stop trying to regulate everything into oblivion.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To be very honest with you, the whole healthcare issue was really an absolutely catalytic. I think I just
Catalyzing.
invented a new word. Thank you.
I like it. I like it a lot.
It's been a while since I had coffee today, so
there we go.
We're getting there. But yeah, I mean, that was when I said, "Wait a minute, you have now completely destroyed the marketplace." And one of the reasons I absolutely categorically refused to vote for Mitt Romney for president was this. And you know what? Hey, I like Gary Johnson. So do I agree with him on everything? I'd say about 95%. I was either yes or at least moving in the right direction, or the same direction, I should say. And okay, you know what? Fine, whatever. Nobody's perfect. And I very happily voted for him. And then in 2016, I very happily donated to his campaign because I had a little extra cash to do so. And that's, I guess you could say, that's when my activism started, along with 2015 when I ran for city council in Marlborough, where I was living at the time. And that's when I said, and there's another friend of mine who was chairman of the local Republican commission. He said, look, register Republican long enough for me to do this so I don't get my head handed to me. And he went out, gave me a hand. He said, if you want to switch back to the Libertarian afterwards, I get it. Now, we've been friends since high school. We're still very good friends. Anytime we get together for lunch, he hands me an application for the GOP, an application for the LP. We promptly put them in each other's pockets, have lunch, and have a nice conversation and visit with each other. Nice. And we're both, someday we're going to get you to switch because he is actually a member of the Liberty Republican Caucus, and he watches some of the things that Trump is doing, and he said, I really do worry that we are not moving correctly. As Paul, you do know that your is, yeah, but the thing is I like to be able to win an election every once in a while. And I said, we're working on that.
But do you win if your principals lose?
See me, we'll be up for a discussion.
Yeah.
So I am seriously toying with running for state treasurer because we have a lot of problems here, and I can get onto the ballot for treasurer fairly easily. And I've already started
I think.
No.
Yep.
Because the first thing I'm going to do is, we voted last year to have the legislature audited for the first time since 1921. That's how they've gotten away with a lot of really bad things. The legislature has now tried to stymie the state auditor. So one of the planks that I have in my campaign is, as the state treasurer, I also control the paychecks. Because I'm basically the comptroller. And the paymaster and the chief tax collector and all that other stuff. And the title is Treasurer and Receiver General. And one of my campaign planks, and Kyle has seen my early draft of it, is plank number 1 is the legislature will have 30 days after my inauguration to comply with the law exactly as it was passed, or I will not pay you until you do, because you are not in compliance with your oath of office.
Could do that with some affiliate agreements, I think. Could be nice in the Libertarian Party.
Fuck you, Tennessee.
I mean, and I can also use this as kind of a bully pulpit for reforming taxes and reforming government. And I can just say, hey, look, we are not on an economically sustainable path. I found out from a YouTube channel I watch once in a while that's focused on local events. Right now we have, I think it was 53 towns engaged in what's called a Proposition 2.5 override. Proposition 2.5 limits the property taxes on residential property to $25 per $1,000 of assessed value. Now, they used to do those when you had something like a major school expansion, or, hey, we're going to put in town sewer so everybody can get off a septic or something like that. And usually it would be a short-term bond issue. They'd have to have some way to pay for it, so it would expire after a couple of years. They're now doing exemptions, which would say we're not collecting enough money to pay for basic services. Now we have to put up taxes beyond where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is because Massachusetts is not returning enough money from the state treasury to the towns. We only return about 26%, according to the Massachusetts Municipal Association, as seen on this YouTube channel. I think it was about 2005, we were returning somewhere around 35 or 36%, and it's gone down ever since. Well, state government has expanded exponentially. And now we're running in a deficit, and it's turned into an absolute quagmire. I think as treasurer, one of my jobs would be to go in there and try and fix it and say, hey, guess what? We're not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I am filing the legislation to put an end to it. And whatever this may happen to be. Return it to the communities.
You've also been in the Libertarian Party, the Liberty Movement, for a while. And I think anyone who has watched party dynamics has seen a lot of shifts. There are some things. Yes. I think we have amazing membership in the party and not fantastic structures that really maximize that membership potential. What issues that you see in the Libertarian Party right now in terms of its ability to be an effective agent for socio-political change? What are some things that you would like to see the party doing?
Very interesting question. That's a very interesting question. I think our biggest limiter is we spend too much time fighting amongst ourselves, to be very honest. We've also seen too many instances where the party leadership, both at the national and state levels, have acted more in their own interests or in the interests of their particular factions rather than the interest of the body as a whole. And it got me to thinking. I was at an installation at a lodge a couple of weeks ago. A very good friend of mine was installed master of his lodge, which is the presiding officer. And the installing officer made a very interesting comment. We have an installation of officers as a formal ceremony to outline the duties of the office and to remind the office holders that they are under an obligation to act in the best interest of the brethren. And yes, this is probably going, and yes, as I was waiting for you to start up, this has become the start of yet another Masonic flavored article for the Torch. So
I know I do. I really do love it.
And I actually shared my most recent piece, Lessons from an Elephant, or I think now second most recent piece, with the gentleman who introduced me to the poem Six Men of Indostan as part of the Deacons Academy training I did about a year and a half ago. He wrote back with, "You have a wonderful gift for writing. While we must remain resolutely non-political, I love the application that you've come up with here." And it really does speak to a lot.
Yeah.
And you have a wonderful gift for writing, and we need to find a way to help you make money with it.
For those who haven't read Lessons from an Elephant, can you summarize what that was about? Because I thought it was an amazing application of that poem to one of the issues that we have, and that I know that I have, with libertarianism and the Libertarian Party generally. Can you summarize it briefly?
Well, the poem was written in the 1840s by an Englishman, and it's six blind Indians, Indostan at that time, who are put next to an elephant, and each man only sees what he can feel, see, because he's blind. One guy describes the trunk as a giant snake, and the other describes the legs as a tree, and the ears as this giant fan, and so on and so forth. But then afterwards, they can't all agree on what the elephant is, other than it's big.
Yeah.
And my point is that libertarianism can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To me, it's the best method to ensure that we have a small, accountable government that answers to its citizenry. To some people, it's the beginning of some glorious anarchist revolution that's going to abolish government, and we're going to have unicorns and rainbows and all linked in arm from sea to shining sea to shining sea.
There we go.
There we go. No,
Wonderful.
linked in arm, tra-la, tra-la, tra-la. And people, and then 100 other things, and each camp looks at the other camp and says, "You're wrong." The point of my article was, no, you're not wrong. But nobody has a lock on who's right. And until we as an organization start to say, hey, wait a minute, we all kind of want the same thing in the end, even if we have a little bit different way of viewing it, we have to work in that general direction. Because if we don't, we're sunk.
Yeah, that's a core.
And we are going to be completely ineffective, and then we end up having the other parties and the other philosophies of the body politic look at us and do something to the effect of,
Yeah.
After 55 years of existence, I would like to think that has been enough of that. And we really need to stop. We need to start working together. We need to set aside small differences. And we need, and sometimes even big differences, and say, okay, who has the best shot at success, and work towards getting those people into the spotlight, into offices, and into places where they will have some influence. When we start doing that, then we will start seeing progress. But until that happens, you shall not have it.
So that's,
and we can't have it.
I think that's a big part of the mission with LPAlliance, is to make sure that everybody from different views gets to work on the thing that they find important, and anybody who also thinks that thing's important can work on it with them. So I was hoping to talk a little bit about the things you've been doing with LPAlliance and with LP Solidarity, because these things overlap pretty heavily. So I want to take the opportunity to brag on you a little bit. So Charlie's been traveling over all the states in the Northeast for us to talk to people and to try to get people involved and be an outreach point for folks. And I know that, it's hard sometimes to see how important that is in a single moment. We've talked before, and you've been down that you don't feel like you're bringing enough people in, or those kinds of things. And it's it's a wild thing to see. We've got people that feel like they're doing amazing, and they have fewer people coming in than you've had. And then you've gone to 6 or 7 states at this point altogether, talking to different people and helping people get spun up and everything.
Well, it's been going mostly by phone, but I've been doing, where I can find people to help out, I try to help find people to help. I've been able to meet up with a few people in Pennsylvania. I will probably be giving an assist in Connecticut in a couple of weeks at their convention.
You met with someone from Vermont?
Even before the LPAlliance existed, I was going here and there working with the Mapstead campaign because I really believed in Lars.
You
and
touched
I
base
loved
with
a lot of
someone
his
from
ideas.
Kentucky just last week.
Yeah. Well, Ken Molman actually came up here.
Still counts.
His company had a client in the greater Boston area. He gave me a call and said, "Charlie, want to go grab dinner?" Sure.
And now Ken's
so he
out
came over
door
a little
knocking.
closer. Yeah. I'm sorry?
And this week, Ken's out door knocking. And Jeremy,
Yep.
Amanda and I talked with Jeremy last night. And Jeremy mentioned the fact that if you'd asked him 6 months ago, he would have told you he would never door knock. And some of these chains don't get seen by everyone. Sometimes these small, seemingly small, in the moment, like a dinner with Ken Molman leads to Ken coming back and having a little more energy, and he talks to Jeremy in a different way. And Jeremy's out door knocking. These interactions amplify so much. And it kind of feeds into some of the things you've been saying with patriotism and things we've been talking about with solidarity and the movement as a whole, where we're watching folks who are down and out with their feelings toward the liberty movement. And all it takes sometimes is that one person reaching out and saying, "Hey, man, we're still fighting. We're still here. Come be with us." And they stand back up.
And I have been doing that a lot locally. I think we're getting there. I have a couple of people right now. I will disclose I'm not a member of Ulmer at the moment. I got frankly, I got a little bit disappointed. I was a little bit disappointed with a lot of the things that I saw happen. I may rejoin at some point, but I'm hoping that we have a greater diversity of voices in Alma, assuming Alma continues to be the leg of the LNC in Massachusetts. Probably will for the foreseeable future. Massachusetts is a little bit strange. We have several organizations that are the Libertarian Party.
Mm-hmm.
We have what's called a statutory party, which I am a state committee man for. That is the legal entity that the Secretary of State recognizes. Then we have ULMA, Unified Libertarians in Massachusetts, which in Massachusetts is a PAC. It's not a party. Just like Mass GOP or Mass DNC would be PACs as well, or any other party. And that's the LNC recognized affiliate. The state committee, however, the state party, or the statutory state party, I should say, is now controlled by the Liberal Party.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes things very interesting. And that's what the LAMA, the Libertarian Association, sits. Excuse me for one.
You have a landline? That's incredible. That is incredible.
Yes, I do. I live in the woods.
I have not seen a landline in a gazillion years.
My parents still have one.
Your parents still have a landline? It's incredible. Did they get called? I guess they do get calls on it.
Yeah.
Like just junk calls? People actually call
I
them?
still call the house phone because like my mom doesn't answer her cell phone.
My mom thinks that she does, and then she never hears it because she always tries to answer it on
Chelsea's
her
parents
on her
also
watch.
still have a landline. And I also call their house phone for the same reason. They're better about answering their phones than like my mom is, but.
Mom's like, well, it makes me feel like a secret agent. I'm like, not if you're actually not talking into your watch, then it's not anything.
Secret
so
agent
anyway,
mom.
Secret agent.
My apologies.
Anyway,
it was
no, it's fine. It's fine. We were reminiscing about landlines. And now it's gone.
Da,
There we go.
Or she said, well, the cable, but she said more. And I said, well, cable. And she said, no, the internet. And she said, oh, yeah, we seem to be having connection issues right now. Oh, okay, because she was trying to watch TV upstairs and
Gotcha.
oops.
Oops.
As I say, I think it's at the switching station, so I'm really not sure what to do with it. And okay. So afterwards, I may very well try rebooting the router just to see what it does.
Might work.
Although it seemed to be behaving, but to me, it's all mysterious. I really don't know. As I have said several times, it's a computer. I know how to turn it on, write a letter, send email, kind of use the internet and play solitaire. After that, don't ask me.
There we go. I don't know how to play solitaire. I mean, I don't know how to play solitaire, so there's that. So you're one ahead of me.
I feel better now.
How do you not know how to play solitaire?
But
when would I have a chance to learn how to play solitaire,
every
Kyle?
computer you've ever used.
I didn't have a childhood.
I didn't have a child.
I didn't play solitaire.
Were you planted and magically sprouted as an adult or something? Or
she's a robot.
Yes.
So
yeah.
they put her together out of the box.
I sprang fully formed from someone else's torso and just
stole it away with someone else.
That has invented for me that I sprang fully formed on the autopsy table. But this isn't about me. This is about Charlie. Yeah. So you were talking about how Massachusetts has lots of different libertarian parties.
Yes, and we can't really get unified because there's a lot of infighting, and then there's a lot of ideological division, and it's kind of a mess right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that we can start seeing some change in that. I'd like to. I've been trying to convince some people to consider joining Alma,
Mm-hmm.
just simply so we can have a little bit wider voice, even if they can't run for anything. To deliberately try and squelch people, they put in a 6-month seasoning requirement, and now they have an expulsion clause that is not well written.
Mm-hmm.
As you may have read in one of the pieces I wrote, I set up something, as much as I don't like the idea, I also see where sometimes, maybe do we have a choice, but you set it up with enough safeguards and things so that it becomes very difficult to abuse, if not impossible, with penalties if you do abuse it.
Yeah.
To give somebody who's maybe thinking of doing something untoward, okay, is this going to be worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that, and then they can just throw you out because they don't like the way you think. And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting in LP and LPAlliance that we have a pretty even split of people who actually do want an expulsion clause and people who don't. And I'm agnostic on it for the moment, but
I'm not.
What do you want, Kyle?
I am of the opinion that the moment someone becomes so bad for the movement that you cannot work with them, they've made it clear that they will not be worked with, and that they are actively stopping other people's work and activism, that they have no business being part of the group. And I understand, that we don't want government, we don't want the centralization, etc. But I think there comes a point where you have done things that have violated the libertarian movement, whether or not it's on whatever pledge we sign. And I think that thereby there needs to be some way, with a very high bar, for the members to come together and say, we refuse to work with that person. In my opinion, one of the most obvious cases is Jeremy Kaufman. And I do my best not to think about the man. This is not me just harping on about it again. when someone espouses no libertarian beliefs, they actively work against the libertarian movement. They actively work against the party. They're willing to abuse resources for their own gain. I mean, you're talking about tons of different types of fraud and types of coercion, and thereby that person should get kicked.
Could that not be neutralized, though, by not allowing them
I
to
don't
hold
think we're allowed to
office,
talk about
right?
neutralizing people, Amanda.
Could that threat not be neutralized
Don't
by
threaten
them
neutralization.
not allowing,
Live.
not being allowed to hold office, not being allowed to have a position of authority in the party? If Jeremy Kauffman is just running around as a libertarian and not actually able to hold office, I don't see, because he can call himself a libertarian anyway, right? Like, I mean, even if he were somehow banned from the party, he could still say he was a libertarian and still claim to represent libertarianism. So that's where I'm not sure banning or expelling individuals from the party.
If I may now ask a question,
Yeah.
Kyle, did you have a chance to look at what I wrote up, and did you have any thoughts on it?
It has been months, Charlie, and I don't remember.
No, his article that we just put up
the
on
recent
the
one.
porch. Yeah.
I thought you meant the treasurer info and was like, it's been a long time.
I'm sorry, I shifted gears without depressing the clutch. My apologies.
Well, that's okay as long as you rev match. Right? Yeah.
What did you think of the article, Kyle?
I haven't read the article yet. I am
Kyle
behind on articles.
Kyle is really, I tell him to edit things or I'll edit things. And he says, I don't read them, I just edit them.
It's true.
I found it I found it really thoughtful. And again, what I come back to is what I just said, which is I'm not sure
And I think that's
expelling someone from
honestly, I think that's a fair position. It's a very hard thing, no matter what we're talking about, and regardless of organization, be it a political organization or a fraternal organization or a social club or whatever else, to say, we don't like you, we want you to go away. And nobody really wants to do something like that. I think that's a fair answer. But as Kyle has also pointed out, and what made me start thinking about it was, especially with the type of thing that we're dealing with, and especially after the last few years, we kind of need something like this, whether we like it or not, no matter how distasteful we as individuals may find it. And if we don't do that, we're going to end up right back where we started. We're going to have all the same mess that led to the Mises takeover. Then we're going to have all of the nasty stuff that went along with that. It may or may not be Mises next time. It could be whoever. It doesn't matter who it is. If it happens and we don't do something to stop it, that's on us. And I don't want that over my head either. I wouldn't want that to be left as my legacy. And I don't think anyone would.
I do think we need to be firmer about our principles and do a better job of representing ourselves to the public and educating the public about what we stand for. Because right now it's just a mess. So people can't tell you what a libertarian is. And if they do, they probably give you an incorrect answer. We definitely need to do a better job with the people who represent our idea. And really, it should be every member who does that. But
when I've been asked, I have a very simple answer. It's libertarians generally believe that if it increases human freedom without causing harm to others, we usually support it. And when I tell people that, they say, oh, okay, that's not unreasonable, I guess. And then you can use that as a starting point. Well, what about A, B, C, D? How do you handle things like that? And you get people's the concept that I was introduced to called cartwheeling. Here's the core concept, and then you build the spokes off of it. And you can use it kind of like that foster discussion. And I have found that very simple explanation, grossly oversimplified as it may be, is usually a pretty good starting point.
I
remember,
I think that's a good one.
I remember when I was 2022, I was trying to get on the ballot for state rep. And we had a doctor come up. She was an admitted socialist. Thinks that Obamacare doesn't go far enough. I want Medicare for all, tra la 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 la. And here she is in a power scooter. After all the foolishness with her and her daughter muzzled and double masked and the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is don't be an idiot. Don't say anything. And Justin Costa, who Kyle is a little bit familiar with, was helping me, and he was patient enough to engage, and then he's this is why we don't think you're right. And we ended up having a somewhat decent conversation, and she she wheeled away thinking, and I could see was okay, maybe I'm not right. And this is why healthcare is a disaster in Massachusetts and in the rest of the country. We've regulated it into oblivion. I ended up 5 days in the hospital last year when I had looked like a combination of a blood clot and middle-aged gunk, and that was all kinds of fun. And ever since then, I've been fighting with the poor excuse that we have for insurance to just basically not die. Some people might be happier if that happened. I don't think I would be. I think I can safely say that a lot of the people in the audience wouldn't have been. I was actually absolutely amazed at the outpouring of support I had from a lot of people in the LP who have become friends over the years. With, are you okay? Do you need anything? Can we help you? And I was very touched, and it shows that at core, libertarianism, contrary to what many people, particularly big state leftists, will think, we are not a selfish group of people. And for heaven's sakes, look at how many of us don't live in exactly what one would call comfort. I've seen a lot of our friends and comrades at arms really struggle to put groceries in the cupboard and heat their homes and do whatever else. And I've been kind of along with them for the last 15 or so years with a very unexpected upset in my teaching career that I've never been able to recover from. And it's just been, catch as catch can ever since.
I think per capita, we are the lowest income political party. I think I read that somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but I think we are pretty low income as a party.
Empirical observation would tend to confirm that.
Yeah.
And but I've also seen from even these people who struggle mightily, I have seen great acts of selflessness and kindness and sharing, even when they have very little to share. And I've done likewise in some way, shape, or form. I don't have much money to give, but I've given quite a bit of time over the years and effort and do what I can.
And to LPA, yeah. And we're very grateful for what you've given to us. So.
And I think all of us do that to one degree or another. because it's, again, it goes back to, is this the right thing to do? And the answer is, well, hey, guess what? It's the right thing to do. So we do it.
I didn't immediately find an answer for.
I know, as I looked for it a while ago and couldn't find where I had seen it, but anyway.
So, sorry.
No, that's quite all right. It's an interesting statistic. It honestly would, and like I said, it just based on what I've seen over the 10, 12 years, I've really been active in circles in the LP or near or related. I started with nonpartisan tea parties and then kind of worked my way in. As they drifted more social conservative, I'm not really a social liberal. I'm not a social, and kind of a social moderate. I've just kind of come to the conclusion of it's best to leave people alone and let them do their thing, as long as they're not hurting you or anyone else, and hopefully not themselves either. And as I've gone along, I've seen a lot of the folks who are involved I just don't have two nickels to rub together, but they will show up and help out and do whatever they can to promote our cause of a freer, hopefully happier society, and a freer, hopefully happier country.
And Kyle's gone. Where'd you go?
Maybe it is his turn to have.
No. It's amazing because usually I'm the one who does have the computer problems, and apparently not tonight. Tonight and I know like now lightning's gonna strike, but he said
I'd be right back. Okay, I guess we didn't hear him.
Yeah, now you're
sorry, man.
Yeah, so I think the one thing for me is sometimes leave me alone becomes a shield with bad actors who don't want to like be involved and help people, right? And I think sometimes we see that from the more reactionary wing of the Libertarian Party. But you know, for those who just want greater human liberation and flourishing, that is not true. For those who want greater human liberation and flourishing, it's just something that the money doesn't.
Is this the part where because both of you are much younger than I am, is this the part where I get to say children play nicely?
Yes, I think it is. Kyle, play nicely. You heard him. Yeah. So I was going to ask as well, you talked a little bit about what brought you to LPAlliance, and you do amazing work in both Solidarity, which is our kind of delegate mobilization group, and in LPAlliance, you do writing for the Torch. What did bring you into LPA? What do you hope to be able to do in LPAlliance? What are you hoping to get out of it?
I'd like to see a party where we I'd like to see a party that functions well enough so that within the next 2 or 3 election cycles, we have a sitting constitutional officer for a state, such as a governor or a treasurer or something of that nature. I'd like to see us have at least one elected from the start member of Congress. And I'd like to see at least 1 or 2 libertarians in each state house. Nothing would make me, well, a lot of things would make me really happy, but that's definitely in the top 5. And I'm talking happiness generally. I mean, there's a lot of other things that have absolutely nothing to do with politics that would make me very, very happy. But that's one of my great goals would be to see something like that happen. I'm hoping it will. Beyond that, I think about, and one thing that I will give, and I think it was mostly under Mises' leadership. I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll stand corrected because I don't recall. But it was under Mises' leadership where Pennsylvania had something like 300 elected local people. That's amazing. And Ohio, which was never really super Mises, but they had they, but there was a sizable presence, and they all just kind of said, okay, look, we're all here together. Let's just work. And Ohio did very well too. And this was all around 2021, 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
We should learn lessons, even if people are ideologically opposed to Mises and have a lot of problems with the way that they've behaved.
Yeah.
We also have to be adult enough to say, hey, they got something right. Let's see if we can repeat it.
With the Pennsylvania one, I can't actually remember, and I wish Phil were watching because he would be able to tell us. I know that there are some that I've heard where prior to the Reno reaction, there were a lot of elected officials locally, and then all of a sudden it dropped off. But again, I can't speak for Pennsylvania because I can't
and
recall.
Like I said, I don't remember. It was right around when all of that was going on. But it was, regardless of who did it, I don't care who did it. What I care about is the result.
Mm-hmm.
And the result is that I think Pennsylvania, a few times I go down to Pennsylvania a couple of times a year. It's kind of the hub of the antique car world, or one of the hubs.
Right.
Specifically in Hershey, which is central Pennsylvania, a little east of Harrisburg, the state capital. And you can see, even in an area that, from what I have been able to tell, is very heavily Democrat and very heavy mainline modern Democrat, which is really not a good thing. You can see a lot of that little bit of libertarian influence in these various communities, because they also have this habit of, okay, does this regulation actually make sense? And then if it doesn't, they don't do it. And that's what I've been able to pick up from talking to the locals, and say, okay, you know what? You did the right thing. This is what I mean by advance freedom, but not do it in a reckless, haphazard manner. There's so many people just want to rip the Band-Aid off and let the chips fall where they may. Well, first of all, that won't get anybody elected. And second, it's just not a good idea. Hi, Kyle.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Kyle.
And
I've fought out of Amanda's gulag.
I didn't remove you from the stream.
Oh, for heaven's sake. But
Charlie's very upset with you now, Kyle.
I have video evidence of it.
Now. But I think we can see where we've had things happen. For example, here locally, a very good friend of mine was elected selectman. As a selectman is a thing that's unique to New England. It's in other places they'll call it like a town council or a village trustee or something of that nature. Same fundamental job. And he absolutely blew the lid off of some real serious corruption in town, because liberty depends on honesty. And a couple of people ended up losing jobs, and I think somebody ended up
Alexa
weaseling out of criminal charges by just saying, here's the money I shouldn't have taken, and was sent packing or something like that. I'm not quite sure on all the details of it, but he, this is the type of thing that libertarians will do that you won't see a lot of other people do. And we try to encourage, and I've tried to encourage people to run for bigger and better things. Well, maybe not better, I guess is subjective, but bigger offices on the principle of, I have stood up and I have defended the citizens of wherever from waste, fraud, abuse, dishonesty, outright theft. You don't see a lot of other groups doing that, and it's one of the reasons why I'm proud to be in the LP.
What are some
I think
causes?
Mhm.
What are some causes and issues that you'd like to see the LP focus on going forward? What are some big ones where we can, really lend our voice?
As I've watched, now I will disclose, I am not an open borders guy.
Mm-hmm.
I never have been. I'm half Armenian. I can tell you what happens when you don't have well-controlled borders.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the history of the Armenian people is usually a very good lesson as to, we have our point, but here's a counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You can also make the same argument for a lot of Eastern Europe, but I think we can advocate for sensible, principled, and practical immigration reform. And we're watching this absolute madness now. This is not what anybody wanted, at least, well, not anybody with any semblance of humanity wanted, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have a semblance of humanity and you still wanted it, then you're not thinking a lot. And I would question if you're even feeling. I think we really need to start working on tax reform. There are some really great ideas I've seen that we could do. I've become a fan of automated transaction tax, which would be so small that if we implemented that in the state and even national levels, your tax burden would drop to almost nothing and we'd be able to fully fund everything, even if we kept the same giant government that we had. If we shrank it down to where we'd like it to be, we'd be running huge surpluses and would probably have to refund money annually. I would really like to see an end, and this becomes tricky because there are some things that we have to be careful about. And I'm looking at it strictly as a pragmatic thing. We really have to end corporatism and any of the crony capitalism that we have.
Yeah.
But then we do lead into other things like through the cronyist system, we kind of have some control over certain things, like why we don't have oil derricks exploding every day because we over drilled and things like that. So, there are some things where, okay, we should probably have some regulation and a little bit of, some kind of a control on. Same thing with banking and insurance. Both banking, insurance, and other financial services have just shown themselves that they just can't self-regulate, or at least self-regulate effectively. Maybe that'll change someday. I can't say for certain. I would love to.
The incentives are so skewed now, so it's impossible to tell. But yeah,
I didn't quite catch that. What was that?
I said the incentives are so skewed now that it's impossible to tell whether
there
they'll,
is that. I would really like to see us take a lead on education reform. I taught for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I loved it, and the day that I couldn't get another job again was probably one of the saddest days of my life. And I applied for a long time after to see if I could get myself back in. I substituted a little and things like that. But I would love to see a freeing of education. I would love to see the federal government needs to be divorced completely from education, at least to the extent that it can be. Special education has been ruled as civil rights under federal law, so there will probably have to be some involvement with special ed under that. But just regular curriculum and things like that, this is one thing that I agreed with Donald Trump on in principle, is to get rid of the DOE. I don't see it happening, at least as fast as it should have.
You don't think that taking the DOE and splitting the responsibilities between a whole bunch of government agencies is getting rid of the DOE?
Yeah, no, it didn't. There are some things that, like I said, like for special ed, okay, special ed is now civil rights. give that, okay, legitimately, you give that to the Attorney General, have an office to oversee it. Okay, fine, I can work with that. The rest of the stuff just needs to go away, vanish completely.
Mhm.
I liked Chase Oliver's idea of just get rid of all the interest on the student loans, leave it at the principal and the student loan program. I'm still paying mine off. Oh, good heavens. It just,
Oh
don't
gosh.
even start me. And I know, Amanda, with your advanced education, you're looking at all the same fun and games that I've ended up with. And
Yeah, I mean, like the trick is work for a nonprofit, I guess. But
and
yeah.
I had an idea. I actually floated it with Joe and Spike. A lot of libertarians poo-pooed it, and I said, well, I think I have a decent idea. Basically, what it was we know that education got hyperinflated, well, college anyway. Par back to inflation. So if your loan should have been, you ended up with $20,000 in loans, and college should have only cost you $10,000. Cut it back down to 10. If you've already paid off below 10, cut it down to whatever is, refund back whatever you've overpaid. If it cancels out your loans, okay, cool, awesome. Otherwise, anything, if you've overpaid it completely, I'm not saying don't pay your loans back, Mr. Miller. Adjust the rate so that it would be more reflective of of reality. And then, because it was the
Yeah.
colleges who took advantage of all of this, make them pay the balance.
I mean, that's what happens, right? When you say we are going to cover the students' education in the short term, so universities tell us how much it's going to cost, then the university can name a high price, right? And it has every incentive to. And then the government has every incentive to pay that because they get it back with interest. So
Mhm.
it's a complete
And
and someone who's
it's
18 years
capitalized
old.
interest on top of it.
Yeah,
So it's
someone
almost
who's
like putting it on your credit card, and it's absolutely insane.
18 years old is time preference is completely out of whack and doesn't have a fully developed brain. It's skewed. It's very skewed because of the federal involvement there.
And Mr. Miller's attitude has been very representative of a lot of people. I'm saying the government did something wrong. This is a curative to it. They had no business doing this in the first place, but then they left it in such a manner that most people, myself included, sounds like you and anyone else, and a lot of other people who went to college, just didn't have much of a choice in the matter. And even if we didn't take loans out, we're still stuck with the grossly overinflated tuition. Let me give you a very simple example. When I was doing this research back in 2020, I knew that in 1968, where I went to college, was $210 a semester. One of my professors had told me so. This is for a semester. You just remember that. Fall 68 was $210. Okay. Student loans started in 65. I played with the inflation calculator a little bit, worked out to like $187 or something like that. Okay. So I calculated, now I had problems with my financial aid in the fall 97. So my parents and I, we looked at it and said, okay, you know what, we think we can do it. We had a little bit of money left over from my grandmother's estate, so we just took care of it for that semester. Mr. Miller, this is not a question of deception. It is a question of honesty.
Yeah, he's not saying someone. He's not saying that someone like was deceptive. It's anyway. Sorry, go on.
So
I
went through the inflation calculator
first, if that's all right.
I want to the end of Charlie's story, and then
I very much want to finish this, but
the inflation calculator, and I found out that in 1997, at the cost of $1,832, I was paying roughly 3 times what I should have. Again, because of these overly liberal loans. So student loans or not, you were still getting screwed.
Sorry,
and I also set up some kind of I was trying trying to figure out a way so I can say, okay, people who paid cash or partially paid cash would also be able to get some kind of a refund on the overcharges. Now the overcharge for me, as I said, okay, whatever ends up being adjusted down, schools are on the hook. You get 4 choices. Make out a payment plan with the Treasury Department. You give free training or research to the federal government with a small expense allowance for consumable materials and things like that. Or you can say, hey, guess what? We can't do this. Sign the school over to the Treasury, go out of business, they auction it off, get what they can, matters considered settled.
Kyle, what were you going to say?
So, I graduated in 2008, and at the time, we were told that there was effectively no other option than to go to college. I had the mathematical ability to figure out loan payments, but I'm in Georgia, and I was told that the Hope Scholarship would pay for everything. I believe it was sophomore year, they gutted the Hope Scholarship, changing the numbers entirely. And for a thing that was in the docket to be passed in Georgia, they gutted the Hope Scholarship for those who weren't earning at least a 3.5. I went to Georgia Tech, where for aerospace engineering, in the number 1 aerospace program in the world at the time, the average was a 2.1. And that's of the 10% of us that made it past the first year. When you are told and you are given data that is erroneous to make your decision by, and it's from people who are making money on you having the wrong data, that is not being forced to sign a loan. That's true. It is absolutely coercive. It's absolutely abusing children, because this is something that's being done to people who are 17 years old. They're kids. Even at 18, you've had at most 1 loan in your life, and that's if you got a car under a loan before you were 18. Did you have a loan before you were 18?
I didn't have a car before I
Right.
was laughing at the idea of me having a car loan before I was 18. That's all. But I think it's
I'm not
okay.
I'm not suggesting that loans shouldn't exist or that someone else should have to pay the loans back. What I'm suggesting is that the way that the loans were pushed upon people was absolutely dirty. And
as a kid in the early 90s, I can tell you that it was very much the same song.
Well, and I think we can say no one was forced to sign a loan, no one was coerced, that no one lied, and also say, yeah, no, we made that choice freely, and the system should be better. I don't think there's anything inconsistent about that. I think you can absolutely say, I chose to do this, I knew what the consequences would be, and it was the best decision I could make at the time, and the options should be better. I don't see any inconsistency with that. That's not blaming anyone else. That's saying we need to take action to make sure that the options are better.
And we need to take action to make sure that this does not happen again. Part of the piece of the legislation I had also written was the student loan program from the federal government would come to an end. Yes, Mr. Miller, it is complete BS.
And I agree with Phil as well. If we take away the federal government's role in this would not be an issue. Because again, like you're saying,
that was kind of my whole point. With okay, now that we've screwed people, how do we minimize the actual damage?
Right.
Because we now have.
I'm responding to that nonsense too. It's not about paying your loans back, because my loan wasn't the rate that I was given. Because
mine
I
changed
have
constantly.
paid twice as much back as was taken from a federal loan, and I still owe more than I paid originally.
Yep.
But I also think that it's worth pointing out, we're not talking about should you pay back your loan or not. We're talking about, is the system broken? Yes, from government involvement, and how do we fix it? And how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? So I think that there's this switch that flips anytime that somebody hears talking about student loans, where they think someone's going to say, I should have my student loans forgiven. I'm not saying that. I don't hear us saying that. What I hear us saying is there was a choice that we made of our own volition, and we knew what the consequences would be. We decided it was the best choice to make at the time, and we think that the system should be better. That is very different from saying someone should bail me out because I was irresponsible. We are not saying that. We're saying the system should be better so that people don't have this situation. Nobody's saying pay my loans back.
And as far as I did everything I can to pay back my loans, drive used cars,
Same.
Mr. Miller, I have not had, nor have many of my friends had, a particularly luxurious or easy life. And the college education and opportunities that were dangled before us in many cases did not materialize.
Yeah.
And that has been the case for a lot of people.
But again, we made these choices and the system should be better. That is what we are saying. And we need to take action to make.
Yeah. And then beyond that, I mean, we just have so many other things that we could be doing. I think the big thing that we just really need to work on, in addition to everything else that we did, is we really need to work on making people understand this is the student loans that we've just had in this little go around. Mm-hmm. This is a perfect example of why we have government that's too big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, if you dangle something out in front of a university and you're the government and say, name your price, tell us how much to pay you in the short term, the university is going to name a high price, and the government, it's no skin off their nose. They have the purse strings. So that's where the distorted incentives lie. And again, there is a huge difference between pointing that out and saying, I'm not responsible for my actions. No one's saying that. We are saying that there's an adverse incentive system and it needs to be corrected for the future, not so that somebody can make up for the choices that I made.
You fucking illiterate hack.
Kyle.
He's an illiterate hack.
He's not illiterate. He knows what he's saying. And again, we specifically said that our loan shouldn't be forgiven. So he's
an illiterate hack.
Intellectual dishonesty is not a good look.
Intellectual disablement's not either.
But
anyway,
it is what it is. But yeah, we have so many opportunities that we can do nationally, locally, state level.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think one of the things that we should do as a party, simple messaging, things like a lot of county and town fairs will let the town Republican or Democrat committee set up. You know what? If we all pool a few bucks, we can probably get a booth too. Have our pamphlets out. We need to find other things to do. I remember when we had the big government shutdown 2019-ish. We had people all over the place going out volunteering to clean up the national parks and do some of the maintenance that needed to be done. People would show up with saws and paintbrushes and whatever else. That's great. We need to show visibility. Again, it touches back on a lot of people see libertarians as greedy, selfish people. Most of us aren't. We can go back to, if we start doing things like help out at a soup kitchen, clean up, help the town clean up a park or something. All kinds of things that we can do for little bits of visibility to show, hey, we're not just inwardly focused. We're here to help our society too. We really need, as a group, we need to start doing that. We've got to. We're a political party. We're not supposed to be doing it. Well, no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Why do you think you go adopt a highway and you'll see, Bullfrog Snot Town Democrat Committee, or Fermi Apple Core Center Town Republican Committee, and all these other kind of things.
Yeah.
And I would love to see, XYZ County Libertarian Party, because most of it is still counties at this point. We don't have enough people for cities and towns. I'd love to see us doing an adopt a highway or we'll help out at a Meals for Wheels or some Meals on Wheels or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We also, one thing I have noticed is we've got a lot of darn good cooks in the LP too, and I think if we put our heads together in various places and got in contact with local senior centers and so forth, we could put together some meals that some of these older folks who might not be able to provide for themselves easily anymore would not only be appreciative, but would actually enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I speak as I have been told as junior warden of my lodge, I am a pretty darn good cook.
What do
Because
you
I
cook?
do most of the junior warden in lodge is as a district deputy had once described it to me, is now one of the grand lecturers. The junior warden is basically the happiness officer. You oversee social events, you oversee dinner, public public facing things. That's kind of your job. I think I have the best job in the lodge. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my little affiliate lodge, little country lodge in western Worcester County, and we go out for the town Halloween parade and hand out candy and Dunkin' Donut gift cards to dads that are out by themselves doing good dad work, and we have we do things like that. We do things for the membership, and that's what that's what we do. I mean, and I ended up cooking dinner for the last year because we have a lot of people who have, like right now I have to be on a low sodium diet, and we've got a few guys that are
Man, me
diabetic and
too.
some other guys that have serious heart issues and things like that. And good to see, Dave. I'm glad to see that you guys are catching on, are doing things like that with the public facing. Good, excellent. We need to see more of it. So I ended up cooking. Now everyone says, "Hey, Charlie, you're a pretty good cook," and we've been toying with going to the Quabog Senior Center and saying, "Want us to do a dinner for one night?" And we have a couple of people who are fairly decent cooks. We actually have one man who's a professional chef, and he said he'd take the night off from his restaurant, come and help us. One of our LP people who is in the process of joining this lodge, and his soon-to-be wife is a also a chef, and I'll come and help. So we can take we'll probably do it on. We're going to try and do it on find one that does it on one of the senior centers, either Quabog or one of the other ones nearby that does it on a Monday when their restaurants are closed, and we can go and do that. And that's one thing that we definitely would love to do. But these are things. But going back, why not to have the Libertarian Party do this? We can absolutely do it, and we should be doing it, because this is how we get our name out there. And instead of people looking at us, yeah, what a bunch of yo-yos. Oh, gee, you actually do things to help people. Yeah, we do. We try to anyway. We're here too.
Absolutely. Well, we are about 100 minutes in, and I think our original idea was to be about 60. So we have had a good long conversation here. It's been
Between
fun.
technical difficulties and
Yeah.
my being vaccinated with a long playing phonograph needle, it kind of adds up.
I personally blame Amanda for putting me in the gulag.
That's not a gulag, and I didn't put you there, Kyle. So it's
You didn't even clean the place first. Look how cobwebby this place is.
that's because it was your turn to clean it, and you chose not to. So these are the consequences of your actions.
I've been
Libertarians for
threatened to
gulag forgiveness. Unbelievable. All right.
So
at least not only do I hope I didn't bore anyone tonight, but if nothing else, you both provided me with a little entertainment. So that's
It was wonderful to talk with you, Charlie. And again, always look forward to your writing. And this has been a lot of fun.
I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. And anytime that anyone, as I've told you, anytime you want to do something, one of these things as a round table or something like that, I'm available. I'd be happy to come along and say my piece, or while everyone sits there or watch everyone else go at each other like a bunch of angry wildcats and just sit back quietly and wonder what, if anything, I should say. Which I have seen both things happen before. So
right. Well, everyone, we are continuing to celebrate the amazing Colorado victory tomorrow night. We're going to be talking to the new chair and vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. The allies have it back, and it feels really good. So we're going to be talking to them.
Good luck to them.
Absolutely. And
I really hope they do well.
Again, we have the business list. Just keep the entertainment going. So again, join us tomorrow night. If you want to get involved, you join our Discord and be like Charlie, please. Discord.gg/LP-Alliance. Go to the torch.media and read some of the great writing that we have there and contribute your own articles as well. We would love to see it. You can always support the LPA and help us get as many people to the Grand Rapids Revolution as possible so we can take this party forward. We'll see you next time.